I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down. I want to go higher, higher, higher than that.
Welcome back to the Business is Human podcast, where we discuss strategies to increase our VRI, value, relevance, and impact. We're here to blend meaningful work with profitable success. I'm your host, Rebecca Fleetwood-Hession, here to steward what we call the age of humanity, to transform the way we work so we can transform the way that we live. As always, my friendly request, if you like what you hear, hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. And then leave a review to tell the other humans that they might like it too. Always looking to help you and connect with others. Let's get into it, shall we? Welcome back to part 2 with my interview with Sarah Gormley, author of the book, The Order of Things, a memoir about chasing joy. And if you missed last week's episode, it's basically me hitting record and then just rambling lots of emotions about how this book impacted me and less of an interview with the author. So in this part 2, I allow Sarah to talk a whole lot more. But I want to read to you the back of this book, the back cover, because I think it just shares perfectly what this is all about. It says, sometimes nothing is more unexpected than joy. What happens when a marketing executive leaves San Francisco to care for her dying mother on their family farm in Ohio? A Hallmark hero would fall in love with her high school sweetheart during a snowstorm, but this is no Hallmark movie. Sarah Gormley spent most of her life trying to outrun the persistent self-loathing that plagued her from childhood, convinced that self-worth was something she had to earn by doing rather than being. When she returned to Salt Creek Farm at age 45, Gormley had no idea that detaching from the success she believed defined her, untangling the complicated relationship with her mother, and continuing the hard work of therapy would lead to a wildly transformed life. Told with exceptional candor and humor, The Order of Things is a story about how one woman learned to let go of the patterns of her past to create a future she never imagined. Ultimately, Gormley's book is about hope, with a powerful message that will inspire you to think about the possibility of change in your own life. And y'all, that's exactly what it is. I read it in one sitting, and I hope that you, based on last week's episode, went ahead and bought it and read it, and now are ready to hear from Sarah. And if you didn't, that's okay. You can still order it today. Here we go. Well, now that we're halfway through or more this episode, yay, I love you. I love your story, but tell our listeners, what is your background, your career background that we've been alluding to so mysteriously in our opening here? Walk us through all the titles and all the big stuff, like share the background first.
Well, it was a different time. We're of an age. My parents encouraged me to go to undergrad and study what I wanted to study. And I was an avid reader and writer from a young age. So I was an English lit major. I went to DePauw University, which is like a gem of a liberal arts institution. But I didn't know. I had no plan. I had zero plan. English lit major, got the grades and blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting into this program at the University of Chicago Business School. So as soon as I graduated, I went to Chicago and started business school classes, which was hilarious because there I was, this little dipshit 22-year-old with these like investment banker consultant bros.
From the Midwest, from Ohio.
And they had put their investment banking, they did what they were supposed to do. They were analysts for X number of years. And then you go to business school and they were like, what are you doing? So that was an interesting experience because I thought I just decided I was pragmatic. I was like, well, I guess I need to go into the business world because I need to pay my bill. So there was no I love X. I just started, and then I started at a PR firm, which is still one of the best in the country, Edelman. And, I understood investor relations and financials. And so I was, the subject matter of the work wasn't the most scintillating, but I was good at it because I was good at everything. And so I just kept doing the things. And then I moved to New York. New York was always the goal. And another big agency. Then I took a little hiatus and worked on a ranch. So I was like, what am I doing? Is this it?
Here's what it felt like reading this is that your intelligence allows you to study almost anything and figure it out. And because of your upbringing and all the things, you went there. You're like, I got to prove myself. I'm going to study and learn, and I'm going to get good grades, and that's going to make me a good person. And and the call in your soul was always this artist spirit who was like, I've done the financial thing. I got to go to the ranch for a while and like cleanse my palate or something. It's the way it feels.
And I didn't think that I would stay at the ranch forever. I think my parents thought I was like going to join in the band of gypsies. And once I got out there, I was like, oh, I really miss New York. I'll go back. Then I went in-house financial services again. And I was kind of like, I mean, I was succeeding. It wasn't occurring to me that a job should be more fulfilling or not. I was just climbing. And then the real career breakthrough, I would say, was with IMAX. So I worked at IMAX for
the theaters?
Yeah, they make films and distribute films. The CEO, Rich Gelfand, is now a dear friend, but that's kind of where I grew up career-wise. I went from kind of being a senior, junior person to the person he called in to discuss how we're going to handle this crisis or that, or, you have it.
Which is a nice mix of your artist heart and your strategy.
Creativity, right? I was getting closer to creativity. And then probably a mistake looking back, but a really pivotal moment was that was in one role, and I put a proposal together for Rich that I was like, this is the role I want at this company. Bigger role, more responsibility. And I put so much effort into the whys and the strategy behind it, delivered it to him. And he didn't say, oh my God, yes, and here's a raise, right? He was like, let me think about that. Let me digest that. He's a CEO, right? He has other executives to think about. And it didn't happen in the timeline I thought was going to indicate how great I was. So I was pissed. And honestly, like it was like I gave him like a week and he didn't come back. And like a week later, a recruiter from Martha Stewart called. And I was like, look, Martha Stewart wants me. I mean, it was so
That's fascinating.
But he encouraged me not to take the job, even after I had it. He was like, Sarah, do not make this move. I will help you find another job.
Oh, that's a humble person. It's not even stay with me, but I will help you find something else. Ooh, I love that humility.
And then I was like, no.
I got something to prove. You didn't want me?
She's going to love me. Well, it's not the case. So anyway,
loves anybody but Snoop Dogg, because I've known other people that have worked for her. So anyway, we digress.
And then I was very thoughtful about the next thing because that's who I am. Like, pretty intentionally went to a nonprofit because I didn't have nonprofit experience. I was like, look, if I'm going to be a board member one day, it would be good to round out my career and have this nonprofit experience.
Always looking for the hole in the resume that you need to fill up.
And I'll get the CMO title, which I did, right? And so, it was all kind of very strategic. And then Adobe, bigger, better. And here's the deal. I had started therapy, but before I went to Adobe.
Okay. Yeah.
And I knew what was going on. And part of me knew you are just repeating the pattern. You're chasing a bigger title, bigger salary. P.S. You're moving across the country and leaving all of your friends. But I just didn't know what else to do.
Because the patterns in our brains, same equals safe in the way that our brain processes information. And so your brain was fighting what the new learning was in therapy. Your subconscious was fighting that, going, girl, you're fine. This is what we do. We climb the ladder. We'll be fine. We go do this thing. And the therapy new pattern of your life was going,
wait a minute.
You just picked somebody to tell us not to do this.
And I'm telling you, I don't even say this in the book because I didn't have the right chaptering for it. But before I moved to San Francisco, I told David, my therapist, like, we're good. We've done what I wanted to accomplish. Off I go. And he was like, I knew you'd be back. So off I go to San Francisco for another big job that wasn't going to do what I needed to do. And sure enough, a year into it, my father passes away. I'm back with David during the therapy, so I don't regret any of those steps because I met and worked with the most amazing individuals. I miss that camaraderie. I miss teamwork. I even miss some of the like hostility from CEOs and the you commiserate after. Can you fucking believe that?
Because that's bonding. You bond over a shared disdain.
Oh yeah, the knowing glances around the conference table. Like, are you kidding me?
That's
like,
community.
So,
yeah. That's community.
That was the path. And, again, I worked for some amazing brands and with amazing people. So, no regrets there.
Tell our listeners the catalyst of the first therapy appointment when you knew you needed to explore some change in your life.
Well, the first one was when I was 29.
Oh yeah, that was not a good experience.
And
share that one.
No, I mean, because you cannot believe that this man said this to me. So
I know you've got to share this. Yes.
I knew I was struggling. I had some of these demons. I wasn't sure what to call it. I felt like shit about myself, but it wanted to fix it. Like, I'll fix it. So I got to find a therapist near my apartment because that seemed convenient. And I walk in, I know exactly what I was wearing, a black and white wrap dress from Bergdorf's, but it was from like the clearance rack. And he was like, well, Sarah, you're thin and attractive. What could be the problem? And I was like, oh, maybe it's not the right fit.
Does that bother you to share what year that was? You already said how old you were, so you don't have to.
52. I was 29. So it must have been 2001 or 2002. I don't know, a long time ago. So,
but I say that because it really wasn't that long ago that a message that sounds so crass and ridiculous today wasn't that long ago.
I know. And I went back a second time and he called me the wrong name. And I was like, that's it. We're done.
We're out. Yeah.
But I wasn't ready. So then fast forward, I was 29 then. I celebrate my 40th birthday with my DePaul girls, my besties, and none of them knew the extent to which I was suffering. And I remember just going to bed with these tears coming out of my cheeks, rolling down my cheeks. And I was like, I got to do something. I can't feel this way for 40 more years because like I'm wasting my life. And reached out to a friend's mother, who's a therapist, and she recommended David. And that's how that started. Anyway.
So the whole catalyst was, I just don't feel good. I don't know why I don't feel good, but I want to feel better.
The catalyst was pain.
Yeah.
Pretty excruciating pain.
And it's important to note that we as women suppress pain and allow it to get really harmful to our bodies and our lives, oftentimes before we address it. And so the one message I want listeners to take from your story is you're not the only one that's in pain, and there's no shame in going and getting the help. If your life doesn't feel like you want it to feel, we'll help you find somebody to go figure that out.
And also, maybe you don't have to get to the point where it's that excruciating, right? And I didn't know what to call it. And guess what? It looked great on the surface, right? For listeners, you're creating a life that everybody envies. Everybody thinks you have it all going on because you're thin and attractive and your husband's handsome and your children are going to the right schools. But
that was my story. I had 2 children, 2 dogs, a 23-acre estate with a 5,000 square foot house. And I worked for a really reputable organization. And what could possibly be wrong with me?
And then you feel guilty that you're not more fulfilled.
Yes.
And you find all the reasons to convince yourself that this should be enough. And you can do that for 20 fucking years and you're not going to get them back. So that was really the driver. And I will also say that I was scared to death to go to therapy because I thought, this is hilarious now, I thought a therapist might say, well, this is it, Sarah. This is just how you're going, like, this is just life. I mean, if he says that, I don't really know what my plan will be. But
wow.
That's not what therapists say because they are good at their jobs.
Yeah. What if a professional validates that this is as good as it gets?
And I was like, what
then what do I do?
But,
if there's no hope, what will I do?
Yeah. So I was really pretty reluctant, had the email drafted, hit send, He was like, let's meet next week. And
then over a series of fortunate and unfortunate events over time, you today own and run an art gallery in
Yes.
Ohio near where you grew up. There's a lot of life that happened between David's therapy office and
Yes.
today. And I don't want to give too much of it away because I want people to buy this book and read it in one sitting with a glass of wine or a cup of coffee. Like, let's not share it all. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, this book is one I want you to read. But for our listeners to be inspired to do so, what some of the highlight reel that you want to share with our listeners today?
I went from a pretty successful, high-powered marketing executive who looked like she had it all and didn't. The timeline is shocking. I'll just say it. So you know this from the beginning, but within a period of about 2.5 years, lost both parents, moved home to Ohio, dropped out of corporate life, fell in love for the first time in a healthy, meaningful adult relationship. Like, how does that happen?
I love that story. I love the
I was like,
background.
it's so cheesy. And then I live in Columbus, Ohio. I never thought I'd come back to Ohio. And I own an art gallery. And now I've written a book. It's like, who in the hell are you? And it's not all fun all the time, but it's just like, I cannot believe that this is my life because my body still remembers what it felt like before. Your body holds on to things.
I want to pause on that. That's important because I do think that through movies and music, we want to believe in the fairy tale ending. And while things are beautiful and better and dreamy in so many ways, your body does hang on to patterns of the past. And it tries to lie to you that what you're feeling now is wrong. And it is that same equals safe homeostasis subconscious part of your nervous system that I still will be walking in the woods leisurely at 9:15 from my morning routine that I've been doing religiously for 8 years since I started this business. And sometimes I will have like this panicked feeling of you're late, you're in trouble. Somebody's going to wonder why you're meandering in the woods when you should be more serious about your career. Like it still happens to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have to stop and go, oh, no.
Right. Well, I had one and I wrote about this on LinkedIn. So the book comes out and it got this glowing Kirkus review. That really doesn't happen. They're usually just balanced. And I was like, oh, Jesus, like maybe it's good. Like, I think it's good. And
which is just as scary as it being bad.
Well, for 3 weeks, I was struggling and I don't think I'm a person who has anxiety, but what happened was I was really scared that I was being sucked into the success vortex because you have measures with a book. You know that there are sales numbers and there are reviews. And I was like, oh God, oh no, I'm losing myself again to the gold stars. And it took 2 therapy sessions. I was like, David.
Thank you, David.
Right. Thank you, David.
I love that you're meeting with David now in the car, in the parking lot of like the supermarket outside of yours. But when you were at the farm.
We do phone calls. And we digress, but he's coming to the New York event. And I'm going to make the room give him a standing ovation. Like he doesn't work hard. But
we all love him.
We love David. So anyway, so I talked to David. I'm like, oh, Jesus, I've done it to myself again. He was like, Sarah, let's hold on a second. What were you chasing before? And I was like, titles, salaries, right? Like team size, international responsibility, whatever. And he was like, what are we trying to do now? And I was like, put a book I wrote out into the world.
I go, I don't know the right answer.
Sell art. And he was like, okay, do we feel like maybe those are things that you're entitled to want to do and be quote unquote successful with? And I was like, yes. But it was what you were saying. It's like my body was resisting this feeling of chasing success because I had done it for so long in a negative light. So I have to check in, and again, we could talk forever, but I have some body stuff that has come back, right?
Body Keeps the Score. That's a great book if somebody has it.
But menopause, I think menopause might be especially difficult for any woman who's had an ED. And I was ashamed to tell my own therapist that I was having some stuff. And then once I talked to him about it and we talked through it, it helps. It's like taking the lid off of the boiling pot and look at it. Be like, we got this. We can handle it. So anyway, it's not homework. It is messy.
And for our listeners who haven't read the book, ED, eating disorder from your childhood, and it's all in here and it's all told in you're a great writer too. I mean,
thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful writer. And I want people to read, men and women, to read this book. The good news to me is that you felt the pull of the success factors and did the pause button and said, hold on, let me just process this and make sure I'm not.
Let's check in and make sure you're not going too far back in, or that you feel like you're approaching things in a healthier way.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, that is what I call my new definition of success, which is me checking in with, is this the right path for me? In my world, following God's call on my life? Am I checking in with myself about what my life's supposed to be? I think is the ultimate, because we're not meant to just have the same chapter of our story over and over and over like we've been told. And I believe, I'm 58. I'm currently an executive coach, a keynote speaker, an author. But next week, if I want to go and run a farm retreat center in Tennessee, I'm damn well going to do it.
Right.
Because that's the next chapter of my story, possibly, or whatever else gets dropped in my spirit. I'm not afraid to pivot, as they say in the corporate world.
A lot of pivoting.
I experienced what you're talking about the gold star idea, when I had first started the podcast. That's something I'd never done before. And it, at my age, doing something new is hard to come by. I've done a lot of weird things and experienced a lot of things, but it was this new world that I was in, which has new metrics, which has new success factors, which has all this newness that besides learning how the microphone works, I'm learning how the world of podcasting works. And people would say to me, well, how many downloads do you have? How many listeners do you have? What are your stats? And at first it felt irresponsible not to know those things, because I ran strategy and execution for one of the greatest consulting firms in the world. Like, shouldn't I know my stats? And when I checked in with myself, I said, much like you're experiencing in that world, did you do this for the stats, or did you do it because you love to tell people stories? And that's what it has said in your journal since you were 12, that you just want to share people's stories. Like, if that's why we're doing it, then we don't care if 5 or 50,000 people tune in. You're doing what you said you want to do. And I refused to look at stats for a long time.
You're bigger than me.
Listen, it didn't happen overnight. I'm saying that's the trajectory that I can now say that I'm living in a more successful way for myself, because I'm able to process that. I didn't start there. No.
Yes. The book has exceeded every expectation I had, but now that it is resonating and I know what the pre-order numbers are, and there's the marketer in me is like, let's give it every chance we can, right? It's like a product. It's like, okay, if you're launching a product, you're going to try to set it up for success. And so Tuesday, September 10th is the publication date. And then I think I'll have a little exhale, and it's like, let the book do the work. It's all been word of mouth pretty much so far. And I love that it's resonating with people. That's the highest compliment. So thank you. I learn when I speak with people as well because of the smart questions. And then I'm like, I don't know. I haven't thought about it that way.
I believe that success for this book is you riding the wave of this story, because getting it into the hands and the hearts and the minds of many people is a gift.
Well, thank you.
So it's not about the numbers. It's about how many people probably need to hear it and read it.
It's fun. It's a little bit overwhelming at times, but I'm pretty convinced that I just want to have as much fun as I can. And I'm proud of it. I'm super, that is the book I intended to write. It took a long time. The editing was challenging, but I'm proud of it. And, now I will have a book on my coffee table with my name on it. So
Yeah.
check, gold star.
I hope you write more because, like I said, you are a beautiful writer. I hope there are other stories that need to be
I have a
released from
second
you.
book percolating.
Yay.
So, and I want to write a second one because I think the process will be a lot more enjoyable.
It is. I'm writing my second one now. It is. There's
Because-
so much less uncertainty and yes.
And I put so much pressure on myself,
Yes.
surprise, on the first one. And now I'm like, oh, you can just write what you want to write and then go back and move things around. So I'd like to do that again, kind of for myself. And several readers have asked, they're like, when do I learn more? I'm like, okay. So
Yeah,
we'll
put me on the list. Oh my gosh. Will you just come back when you start to write the next book and tease us a little with what's happening? Like
sure.
I just feel like we're kindred spirits in so many
Oh.
ways. And I'm going to have to make a trip to Ohio to come to the gallery and we'll have a glass
Oh my
of
gosh,
wine. And
me too. And I have some book events at the gallery from time to time. And it's the entrepreneurial thing. I'm like, it's my gallery. I can do whatever the fuck I want. So I just do what I want.
tell our listeners the name of your gallery. They may be in Ohio or put you on their list of trips for this fall. Where are you? What's the name of it?
Sarah Gormley Gallery, creative branding expert, right? It's like, oh, how about Sarah Gormley Gallery? Great, that works. Downtown Columbus.
Downtown Columbus, Ohio, which is a vibrant, that city has grown into something pretty
I don't know if
amazing.
it still is, but all last year was the fastest growing city in the country. And it's like, there's a lot happening, but I just love it. And the other gallery owners here have been so welcoming. It's a kind of city, maybe not dissimilar to Indianapolis, but you can network.
Yeah.
People are supportive.
People know
and,
people.
and the cliche of Midwest nice, sorry, people are nice and they want you to succeed. I'm like, what is happening?
Amen, sister. Amen. Yeah. Columbus, Ohio was when I first started Franklin Covey. That was my first regional office location. So I was there often and I watched some of it, of the growing of it. And it is a beautiful, big little city.
Come visit anytime. I'm here.
All right. So The Order of Things, a memoir about chasing joy, Sarah Gormley. Buy it, set aside the entire afternoon to just dig into it and you will not be disappointed.
Sorry about the tears. There's apparently some crying that goes on when you read it. That's okay. And laughter. So
yeah. Yeah. I just am sitting here like thinking about the book going, yeah. And then there was that one part. And then when you met him and then like when you were like, oh my gosh, I think I like him. Like you literally, like you go from this like corporate story and then this, like you're taking care of your mother was, and it's her last days and you're getting like, you think you're reading a novel because it just has that emotional hook. And then you have those moments while you're reading it where you're like, oh, this is her story. Like this is real. And that's, okay. I'm going to go off on another tangent. We need to end this and just have people come buy the book and then come back and tell us what they thought about it.
I would love that. Buy the book, write a review if you have the energy. So you do Goodreads first, and then I'll remind you next week to just copy and paste it onto Amazon. That's the like behind the scenes hustle.
Yeah,
of book
I forgot.
publishing.
Yeah, I forgot.
So-
Yeah. Okay. Goodreads going in. I'm going to do it today. And
if
everybody can buy
people-
the book when?
They can order it right now. I don't know when the podcast is going live, but they can order it everywhere September 10th. And I've already been requested and have committed to doing several book clubs, some in person, some Zooming in. So until
if we go to sarahgormley.com, will we learn
Yes.
about things there?
Yes.
Okay.
sarahgormley.com. Instagram is SCG1255. All the social links are on the website. So you can find me. I'm infinitely findable.
Thank you for being you. And I'm glad
Thank
we
you.
met.
Thank you for the thoughtful conversation. It's nice to see your face again.
Coming down. I never left it on the ground. I'm not coming down.
Thanks for listening to this episode. I would love it if you would go to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. And then you can go to RebeccaFleetwoodHessian.com and join the Badass Women's Council. And if you really want to take a deeper dive, join the movement of 1,000 thriving women. There's amazing Thrive tools there for you today. Love you, mean it.
I'm not coming down.
Hey, y'all, fun fact. If you like the music for the podcast, that is actually my son, Cameron Hessian. And I would love it if you would go to Spotify and iTunes and follow him and download some of his other music. My personal favorite is TV Land.